Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Know Your Numbers webinar here on the deWiz Facebook and YouTube channels. My name is Matt Lawrence. I'll be hosting today's webinar, and in just a few minutes, we're going to be welcomed by Henrik Stenson, the 2016 Open champion. He's going to be joined by our co-founder, Marcus Westerberg, and they're going to have a nice little chat today about how you can know your numbers and how you can begin to improve your game with deWiz. Today, we'll be focusing on the deWiz transition numbers as well as your tempo numbers to help make sure that you can have a consistent swing and improve your game. Before we welcome in Henrik and Marcus, just a few housekeeping items to get us going. The deWiz Disc Challenge, the Disc Wedges Challenge, the community challenge that we launched back in our November webinar with Annika Sorenstam. We're going to give you to the end of today to get those scores in. Remember, if you beat Marcus, you're going to have an opportunity to win a deWiz hat signed by Annika Sorenstam. So make sure you get those scores in by the end of today. You can tag us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter at deWiz Golf with your Disc Wedges score. And if you beat Marcus, you are going to receive a signed hat by Annika Sorenstam. So get those scores in by the end of today. One other note before we get started. Tomorrow night, Wednesday, you can watch the Nota Begay 3 Junior Golf National Championship on Golf Channel. We were down there in Louisiana with Nota and his team for that national championship. It'll be aired on Golf Channel from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, and there's going to be a special feature on deWiz during that broadcast. So we're making our Golf Channel debut tomorrow night, 7 to 9 p.m. on Golf Channel. Give it a watch. The Nota Begay to the Nota Begay Junior Golf National Championship. So without further ado, we're going to welcome in our guests for today. We're going to welcome Marcus and Henrik into the broadcast. There they are, Marcus and Henrik. Guys, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. I'm going to get this squared away. There we go. The three of us now on screen. Henrik, thanks so much for taking the time out to join us. I know you were down in the Bahamas this weekend at the Hero World Championship. So thanks for taking the time to join us. Before we get started.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Before we get started, Henrik, I just want to briefly touch on, how your relationship with deWiz got started. Obviously, you and Marcus have known each other in the past, but how did that relationship with Marcus get started, and how did you get involved with deWiz in the first place?
Yeah, it was a number of years ago now, back in Sweden. I got to meet Christian Berg and Marcus, and they showed me the product and asked if I had some interest in being part of it. And obviously amazing technology that's been developed, and something that we felt could really help a lot of golfers and be a good complement to just being out there practicing on your own and hitting golf balls on the range and trying to get better. So you can have a tool that can give you some really good feedback and in a way that not many others, if any others, can do. So yeah, excited to be part of this project and get to learn more about it as years go by, and also it can be a help for myself in my practice and development.
Awesome. Well, Marcus, I'm going to let you take it away from here. I don't think people care to hear my voice anymore. So Marcus and Henrik, you guys will take it over here on the Know Your Numbers webinar.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, it's been a while now since we started with those old prototypes there, Henrik, and we've come a long way, and we're going a lot farther. So this is a Know Your Numbers webinar, and I know there are a lot of people out there very curious about one of the best ball strikers in the world, Henrik Stenson's numbers. So let's talk a little bit about a mid-iron, 7-iron-ish for you. I know your length of backswing is about 140 centimeters, but we're going to talk a lot about the things that creates consistency, and tempo is one of those. And then we look at your tempo numbers. You are a lot faster than the normal amateur out there. We're looking at a start to impact time at 0.83, 0.84 seconds. And I know you don't feel fast, but this is what we see with the elite players. Swings are faster, and your ratio is perfect 3-to-1. How would you say you look at the tempo numbers, and just to try to keep track of them?
Yeah, I think I mean, to start with, I guess a lot of players, they would have kind of developed over time the tempo that seems to fit them, and I don't know if personality comes into play as well, but you could have anything from I guess Freddie Couples to Nick Price, that when you view it, you can, it appears to be quite different, the tempo, but it's, I mean, it's kind of the rhythm within the swing that makes it. And I'd say I'm certainly not like Hideki, where I swing it up and pause at the top and then give it a go. I'm definitely more of a swift kind of rhythm tempo to my golf swing, and that seems to have been what's worked well for me over the years. And like we said, we got a start to impact of 0.83 on this 7/8 iron. If you know more about the numbers than I do in the bigger picture, I kind of tend to know my numbers pretty well, but not comparison to other players. So if you say that that's perfect, then I'm happy enough.
Did you know that you had a pretty fast swing before you got the deWiz numbers?
A little bit more on the quicker side rather than the slower side. I would have said, but I didn't necessarily know exactly what they were.
No, it's interesting, because I know we have a lot of new viewers from the last webinar, so I want to go into repeat little stuff here. Of course, what we're looking for is the golden ratio 3-1. Backswing is 3 times slower than the downswing, which is Henrik. I look at hundreds of his swings. It's 2.9 3-1, 2.9 3-1. It's like that all the time. And what we see again, that the normal club golfer is slow going back and then a bit too fast coming down in comparison, which makes the transition not that solid, and the timing of the shots gets worse. And again, we look at the better players, the top players, they are around 3-1, and a lot faster than the normal club golfer. Another part that's I know that you look at a lot more than your tempo is the transition. Tell me how deWiz transition helps you keep your game on track.
Yeah, I think that was really the partly the starting point to deWiz back in the day with Christian, right? You were helping him to try and get rid of his kind of over the top and his slice motion, and that was partly why deWiz came about. And
correct.
And I think that's we know kind of the common slice is a big kind of problem for, I'd say 75-80% of the golfers tend to struggle with that, and it's obviously a great tool in being able to give you this feedback and try and give you a transition and try and give you a swing play and up and down that's closer to each other. So I think a lot of the viewers would benefit from looking at that and trying to improve on that. But for me, it's kind of been the opposite a little bit. I've been more so dropping from my backswing top position. I've been then using my body a little bit incorrectly, and in that way I've been dropping the club too much on the inside, and I kind of get a little stuck. I get in my own way, and that's it's a big part of why my ball striking hasn't been as efficient and good as it has been in previous years. And I think I'm getting closer and closer to getting my way out of that, but it's certainly been a problem. And playing golf from being stuck on the inside is not the easiest, and it leads to other than compensations and so on. So to be able to work on that transition and get the sequencing right in the body, and then getting those numbers more dialed into where you want to have them is obviously a key part in improving for me and for a lot of the listeners that we have on the line here today.
Let me just illustrate what Henrik means by getting stuck on the inside, because I'm not sure everyone knows that. So if Henrik falls too much down in transition, going too much minus here, he comes here, and this is where he feels stuck. He wants to be more, give himself more space. You see, I have more space between my hands and my legs here than when I come in this way. That's what Henrik means by getting stuck. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So
maybe you should become a golf trainer. What do you think?
I'll think about it. So what would you say happens to the golf ball when you get stuck? What kind of misses do you have?
Well, then, I mean, normally you would either hit like a push from being, because your path will most likely then be going out to the right, and then whether you like it or not, your mind still knows where you want to go in terms of relation to the target. So then you would kind of flip your hands a little bit to try and bring that back to targets. I think for me, it's led to a couple of different things other than those ones, and that's been, I've been then trying even harder with my body to kind of work left to get the start line then a little bit more towards target, because when I've been playing well and swinging well and having pretty neutral numbers, I hit a neutral ball flight, kind of starts at target and doesn't really shape much either way. So I've been then trying to compensate when I don't get that start line. I'm moving my body even more left. I'm already stuck behind, and I might get the start line better, but now I got a club face in relationship. So I kind of had a two-way miss for too long, and that never builds any confidence. You want to be able to take at least one side of the golf course kind of out. There's nothing like 100% guarantee, but for the most part, you'll see the top players feeling like they can either take the left or the right side of the golf course out of play and play a shape or a shot that will most likely not end up in that spot, and that really gives you the confidence to be able to go after it and attack the pins if you know you can take one side out.
Yeah, and interestingly, even though you have the elite players problem, it all starts in transition. Just like the slicer coming over the top, it starts in transition, and then you have to fight and compensate coming down into impact. And the elite players problem is what you do. Like you said, and many guys, they fall too much. So I know you're trying to get that transition back to on plane, which is where you are most of the time. And even a little plus, not to be able to just not to go that far down in transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to hop back in here because we have had a couple of questions that have come in from the chat. We're going to start. Let's see. We're going to start first with Mark, and this is a question for both Marcus and Henrik. But Mark wants to know, what do you recommend for golfers that are less than a 3-to-1 ratio? And he says, for example, I'm a 2.2 to 1. Is it better to try to slow down my backswing, or let's see, slow down the backswing or speed up the downswing?
Well, what we see is that it's better to be at a lower ratio than a higher ratio. But I would try to, first of all, I would look at what is your length of backswing. Is it short? Mm-hmm. Can you make that longer? It will help with your ratio. And also try to speed up your downswing.
Absolutely. And then, Henrik, this one was specifically for you. This comes from Casper. It says, has Henrik taken the deWiz on the course? If so, does he notice any difference in his numbers compared to when he's practicing? Or in said differently, do you notice when your swing may change when you're actually on the course and competing compared to when you're just practicing on the range?
Yeah, I haven't used it out in tournament play. Obviously tried it on the golf course a couple of times as well. In practice on the course, I wouldn't say I've seen a huge difference, but I think as for anything, if you're standing on the range and you're hitting 26 irons in a row, you normally tend to get maybe in a better kind of rhythm and see less differential between them than if you're just taking the odd shot here and there. But yeah, I mean it's something that you would strive for to kind of get your numbers as close to So you really couldn't tell a difference. I mean, that would be ideal. I think maybe Marcus have more data than I have in relation to that question. So I'll leave that over to Marcus there.
I sure do have. We should have a lot of data on that, and what's the natural tendency is that old habits reappear. So I'm pretty sure that taking on the course and not hitting it good. Again, looking at the transition, looking at the length of backswing, because the length of backswing generally becomes shorter on the golf course, not completing the backswing. But I urge everyone out there, take the deWiz on the course, compare your numbers to what you have on the driving range. When it comes to a player like Henrik, he's so solid and he's played so much golf that it's not huge difference between the course and the driving range. There is a difference, of course. Looking at the club golfer, there can be really big differences, and those are interesting. And always look at which are my good numbers. Make that star marking or the favorite marking on the deWiz, so you know when you hit the good shots what you do, whether it's on the golf course or on the driving range.
And Henrik, another question that we have come in, and we get this a lot of times when we have our ambassadors on, and we always talk about the feel versus real, concept. And for you, where do you balance the idea of, looking at numbers, looking at data, and comparing that to just what you're feeling with your golf swing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think a lot of times the whole feel versus real, it's obviously that you can feel like, okay, I'm really on the inside, I'm really on the outside, and it might only be a couple of degrees or something there different. So that's why it's good to get the feedback from a tool like the deWiz. Maybe combine it with some swings on camera as well. You can obviously combine different ways of helping you with that concept, but a lot of times we will feel a bigger difference than a lot of times what it is in terms of the numbers. That's my experience, at least over the years. Yeah, now I'm kind of lost track on where I was here. Repeat the second part of the question, please.
No, I was just, curious how you balance the idea of looking at numbers, looking at data, and then comparing that to just what you are physically feeling, because nobody knows your golf swing better than you. So at what point do you, maybe look at numbers and then also just kind of go off of, what you're feeling on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately, I mean, when anything that you use, a training device or a tool is obviously there to help you, but then at the same time, if you're going to perform your best, you can't be relying on something else more than you rely on yourself as well. So it's always that balance, use it in the right way at the right time. It's a bit like people have asked me about my old 3-wood, and I said, well, when I'm standing there on the 71st hole and I got to hit a fairway finder, I'd rather use the club that I know has performed well for me over years and that I know, and it's kind of the same with your golf swing. I mean, you want to have the swing that you feel in control of and that you can repeat under pressure. That's obviously more important than at times a number that will tell you that you're 1 degree over or 1 degree under. So you can't really be a slave to kind of the numbers, but they're there to help you and improve over time. So kind of use it in the right way and trying to become better with them. But still, if you're standing on the last hole, I wouldn't want to go like, I need to be 1 degree more here or 1 degree more there. That's not going to be the right kind of frame of mind to play your best. So it's using it in the right way and combining the tool and the data you can get with the practice you do and kind of bridge that gap then between what you feel and what's actually happening.
Exactly, and that's what we're hearing from so many of our users and experience, that's just getting a number of what you're feeling and knowing your numbers. And like you said,
Yeah.
They can be your personal numbers. Some have a shorter backswing, some have a very long backswing. What we see is that most better players tend to be 3-to-1 in ratio. They tend to be faster, but just knowing that what is my baseline and just working from the baseline, and because sometimes you feel off, but you might see that I'm not that much off, or vice versa.
Looking at some other questions in the chat. Larry, we will get to you in just a minute. Larry has a question that's not necessarily related to transition or tempo, but we had this one that just came through on Instagram from Play Better Golf 321. He says, will deWiz help us to get to the right tee box?
Definitely. It's got that mapping. It's an added feature that Marcus has been working on a lot since Sunday, and it should take you to the ninth when you're playing the ninth, and in case they try and trick it up and put the 17th tee box where the ninth was the day before, deWiz will tell you that you're in the wrong spot.
Yeah, we put all our development team on that because it was quite interesting there, and we feel that we can shave 2 shots off all our players' score like immediately.
Yeah, that was certainly a bizarre thing that happened to Jordan and myself, and like I said, it just shows you we're creatures of habit. You're walking off the 8th and you're walking straight back up onto the other. The same tee box you've done for the previous 4 days with the Pro-Am and the first 3 tournament days, and you put the ball in the ground and hit it down the fairway. I even hit the best tee shot of arguably the week. So I had my chest out and walking happy down the hole, and then the rules official come up and said, "Did you guys tee off on the right tee box?" And we're like, "What do you mean? It's the same one we hit all week." And yeah, well, that's the 17th today. So we obviously didn't pay attention. Our caddies didn't pick up on it. 4 or 5 people that were walking with us inside the ropes, they didn't pick up on it, but surely enough, there was the 17th tee sign was where the 9th was before, and the 9th was moved about 30 yards further up and to the left. But when you're kind of locked on target, sometimes you don't see things, right?
Truly a bizarre situation that happened on Sunday. Now, Henrik, we'll get you out of here in just a minute. We got one more question that came in from Bill. Let's see. He says, I tend to be a +1 or a +2 on my transition. I believe he's speaking in inches here. Any ideas on how to improve transition to get that more neutral and on-plane golf swing? For people that struggle with, that over-the-top move, what are some things that they can do to kind of help improve that consistency to get a more on-plane golf swing?
So I can show that, because what the move you're looking for here is transition. Plus is towards your toes. You're coming back here and you go plus, that's towards your toes. So what you want to do is you want to go towards your heel in transition. So you're coming back up, move towards your heels before you go down. That's how you get the minus transition.
But also in addition to that, Marcus, you would also want to look a little bit maybe on how the person get from point A to point B as well. If someone takes it very much inside and behind them, it's almost going to be like there's nowhere to go rather than to go out, and the other way as well. If someone's really picking the club up and lifting it outside, then they're gonna drop it, right? So it might be worthwhile also looking a little bit on how you get to the top position from your starting position, and try and make sure that you're fairly close to the plane on the way up, because if you're way off there, it's going to lead to some potential problems on the way down and in the transition as well, I presume.
That's a great point, Henrik.
Absolutely. Well, Marcus, we have a couple more questions here in the chat that you and I can go through afterwards. But Henrik, wanted to thank you again for taking the time out. I know you're a very busy man, so just having the opportunity to talk with you, and for our viewers to be able to, get a chance to talk with Henrik Stenson. I know it's just something that's very unique about this company. So we thank you so much for taking the time out to join us on this Know Your Numbers webinar.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll see you out there on the driving range trying to get better, right?
Absolutely.
And happy holidays to everyone. It's coming up shortly, so enjoy. And thanks for having me.
Thank you, Henrik.
All right. Ciao.
Henrik Stenson. Well, okay. Marcus, as we've, we said it after our webinar with Annika, but, just the opportunity for people in our deWiz community to have these webinars, to be able to have a live Q&A with some of the best players that have ever played this game. It's very unique, and something that, being a part of this community, it's really special.
Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic. And we have got all the feedback that we get from these players with all their experience. And just Henrik talking about the feel of the golf swing. He's very much a feel player, and it's so interesting to put numbers to those feelings and see all the different differences. I mean, just looking at hundreds and hundreds of Henrik swings and see how accurate he is in his tempo, how accurate he is. I mean, he's talking about having a problem in transition, but to be honest, he's very rock solid. However, that is what he needs to work on and keep track of, not to get stuck, which is a very common tour player's term. I showed you earlier what it means to get stuck, but again, it's the small things that the devil is in the details.
So we had a couple more questions that came through. This one actually came in right after Henrik left, but Karen wants to know, and Marcus, I think you probably have the answer for this. She wants to know, my daughter Ebba wonders what your length of backswing is with your driver. I believe that question was probably directed towards Henrik, but is that a number that you can provide Karen with? Do you have an idea of what Henrik's backswing length with his driver generally is?
Henrik is around 155, 160 centimeters with his backswing. That would be 61, 63 inches.
Awesome. Let's see what other questions we had. Larry had a couple that came through. Again, this one would be for you, Marcus. He says, when using the deWiz on the course, do you recommend selecting the club for each shot? I can answer that question. Yes, it would be the best way for you to go back afterwards and track your data. If you actually mark what club you're using each time, it'll be easier also to figure out what shot that translated to on the course, because I know I can go back after a round and be like, okay, on number 3, I know I had 160 yards out. I know I hit my 7-iron there, and I'll be able to easily find that when I go through my data. So yes, Larry, we do suggest that you do select your club when you're using it.
That definitely would recommend that. And also you can look at, you get more driver numbers to compare in irons and wedges, and you will see the trend.
Absolutely. And the other question that Larry had, he sent this one in earlier. He says, I know this is a Know Your Numbers about tempo and transition, but can you provide some guidance on the optimal backswing plane numbers?
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Now the backswing plane is very individual. What we can say is that a steeper backswing plane, a higher number, is generally creating more power, more speed. Looking at planes, like let's take a look at Matt Kuchar, very flat backswing. Take a look at Justin Thomas, very steep backswing. It's quite individual. I would recommend play around with different backswing planes and see what happens. See what happens to your deWiz numbers. See what happens to your impact and the ball flight. That's one number that's really hard to recommend. I would say, well, if you have a 120 backswing centimeters with your driver, make it longer. But I wouldn't say directly if you have a 67-degree backswing plane, make it steeper, because I could be wrong. Mm-hmm. That's very individual. Just looking at the best players, how different their plane numbers are.
And the other part of that is, a lot of it is dependent on what club you're using as well. Sometimes you're going to have a bit of a steeper playing with your wedges than you are with your driver. So that's, like you said, it's not necessarily something that we can fully suggest what your plane should be. But again, we say know your numbers for a reason, because if you have an idea of what works best for your swing, it can help you replicate that moving forward.
Yeah, exactly like that, because driver is going to give you a flatter backswing plane than your wedges, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, Marcus, once again, another webinar in the books. We've done these 3 times now in the last 3 months. We've had Annika on, we've had Henrik on, and hopefully we're going to have some more of our ambassadors on in the future.
And other interesting people. So we're looking forward to these, and I'm really happy to get to see the interactions we get in the webinars and the follow-ups. And remember that all the webinars are on our YouTube page, where you can look at them after the live session.
Absolutely. We will we'll have this archived. You can go back on our YouTube page, just search deWiz Golf on YouTube. It'll bring you right to our channel. Hit the subscribe button at the top of the page. Every time we update and upload a new video, we go live, you'll get an instant notification on your YouTube app that we have gone live. We've uploaded a new video. So just hit that subscribe button. You can also watch it on our Facebook page as well. One more reminder, if you have not done so already, make sure to get in those disc wedges scores by the end of today. And we have some Annika Sorenstam signed hats to give away for our winners, that if they beat you, Marcus, I don't know how many we have that have come in that have been able to beat you. But I will say, Chris Watson, congratulations. You have set the new disc wedges high score. He set in a score of a 96 last week. So Marcus, you have some competition to beat moving forward.
I'm looking forward to that, Matt. We have to tell them, because we haven't mentioned in this webinar, that the score that I made the last time was 85 that they need to beat, right?
I believe it was 86.
86. Okay, so better than 86, and you can look at your exclusive deWiz hat signed by Annika.
Absolutely. Well, Marcus, it looks like the lights are going off on
you.
you.
Someone turned the lights out here. So, all right, I'm back.
I guess that means it's like 5:30 over there, so it's time for you to go home, I guess. Well, Marcus, once again, thanks for your time. We thank Henrik Stenson one more time for joining us on today's Know Your Numbers webinar. Thank you for everybody who commented on the chat and played along with us today. We'll be back probably in 2022, I guess, in January with our next webinar. Be on the lookout for that. If you have not done so, please subscribe to our newsletter. Go to our website, subscribe to the newsletter. You'll get updated on everything that is going on in the deWiz world, in the deWiz community. Marcus, I'll talk to you later. Have a great night, and we'll see you in 2022.
You too, Matt, and thanks to everybody who joined us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcus.